On February 6, 1961, young Irish boxer Kid Snow fights Hammer Marina. After 3 rounds, Kid tells his father that he can beat Hammer. His father, upset by the boast, slaps him and tells him to follow the plan. Kid ignores the advice, becomes more aggressive, and knocks Hammer down in the next round. This worries both his father and Hammer's manager, Frank, who had made a secret deal. In the end, Kid gives in and lets Hammer win as planned. In the locker room, Kid is upset over the loss while his older brother Rory gets ready for his fight. Before leaving, Rory promises to win his match. Later, Kid drives home with Rory and their father. Still angry about the fight, Kid starts drinking while driving, but Rory takes the bottle from him. Kid argues with their father, claiming he could have won. His father responds, saying that sometimes winning a bet is a win too. Kid doesn't agree and tries to grab the bottle back from Rory. In the struggle, Kid loses control of the car and crashes into a truck. The crash kills their father and leaves Rory badly injured. 10 years later, Hammer Marina, now a national champion, visits a traveling circus with Frank and American journalist Ed. Both are confused by the stop. At the circus, Rory is in charge of the tent boxing. His main act is his brother, Kid Snow, who has fallen from his prime and now fights for small amounts of money. At a nearby diner, Hammer shares his plan to visit his old rival. Frank warns him to forget about it, but Hammer is determined. He goes to the tent to watch Kid fight. As Kid spots him in the crowd, he gets distracted and is knocked down by his opponent, Danny. Hammer taunts Kid, but Kid quickly gets up and knocks out Danny. Kid then challenges Hammer to a fight. As Hammer approaches, Rory steps in, warning that the crowd is on Kid's side, and a fight could cause trouble. Hammer backs off, leaving with the crowd laughing at him. Outside, a frustrated Hammer orders Frank to arrange a rematch with Kid Snow. Realizing there's more to Kid than just being an old rival, Ed approaches Kid and introduces himself. Later, as Rory counts the money from the night's boxing event, mob boss Slim and his companion arrive to collect the debt. At a bar, Kid sees Danny and his biker gang. To avoid a fight, Kid buys them drinks, but they warn him it won't be the last time they meet. Meanwhile, Ed enthusiastically photographs the venue and urges Frank to give Hammer what he wants, saying it would make a great story. The manager hesitates, worried about the threat from the Irish fighter, but eventually agrees. Meanwhile, Slim's men beat up Rory over his unpaid debt. Frank steps in, offering to pay it off for a small profit. After thinking it over, Slim agrees, realizing it's better than getting nothing from Rory. Frank then talks to the owner of the tent boxing, demanding his money back and proposing a deal. The next day, Rory and his crew pack up and leave for their next stop. Meanwhile, Hammer continues training and tells Ed that Kid never fought professionally after their match, while he became a champion. When Ed asks why Hammer is so fixated on Kid, Hammer brushes it off, saying he just wants to beat him up. He then warns Ed to focus his article on him, not his fated rival. That night, as the crowd fills the tent for another boxing match, Rory notices a beautiful woman named Sunny and offers her free entry. She refuses, saying she'll pay. Rory can't stop watching her as she moves through the crowd. Later, Sunny steals money from a spectator and rushes to her car, where her son Darcy is asleep. Instead of driving away, she heads to a bar for a drink. Darcy wakes up and leaves the car. Soon after, Rory, Kid, and their fellow boxers Lizard and Armless arrive at the bar. The bar owner kicks out the others for breaking the no fighters rule, leaving Rory alone. He notices Sunny, offers to buy her a drink, but she rejects him. He then accuses her of stealing and drags her to his tent. Darcy, trying to hide, accidentally gets into Kid's car. In the tent, Rory pressures Sunny to take off her dress, threatening to call the police. She reluctantly gives him the stolen money. Still unsatisfied, Rory orders her to dance. After some negotiation, they agree on a deal, and Rory lets Sunny and Darcy stay in one of his caravans. Meanwhile, Kid finds Darcy in his car, and Sunny attacks him, thinking he means harm. Kid apologizes, explaining he thought Darcy was stealing. Sunny insists he's not a thief. Later, Rory talks to Kid about a rematch with Hammer. Kid laughs off the idea of fighting Hammer, but Rory reveals he's already arranged it, including a qualification match first. He convinces Kid by offering $12,000. Kid worries Hammer could end his career, but Rory reminds him his own was ruined by past mistakes. After a brief pause, Kid agrees to fight, but only for the match itself. Later, Rory keeps the money, but Kid demands half. Rory says it's for the team, but Kid insists, and eventually Rory agrees. That night, Billy offers Sonny coffee. The next morning, Kid tells Lizard about the fight. Lizard is skeptical, but agrees to help with training. At breakfast, Kid invites Darcy, but he declines. Lovely suggests throwing the fight for money, but Kid insists on fighting fairly, even though he knows his chances are slim. That afternoon, Kid starts training for his match as Ed arrives for an interview. Ed praises Kid's past performance, but Kid admits they're not on the same level anymore and walks away. Later, Kid struggles to keep up while jogging with Lizard. Before her performance, Sonny tells Darcy to stay in the caravan. Kid encourages her, but she ignores him and performs effortlessly. Darcy sneaks backstage, and Kid returns him to the caravan. Afterward, Sonny angrily tells Kid to leave, but when Darcy explains, she grows concerned and asks Kid if her son saw her perform. He reassures her he didn't. The next day, Kid trains while Hammer spars at the gym. After a knockout, Hammer smugly tells Ed to pass along the news to Kid. Sonny, now more comfortable with Kid, asks him to babysit Darcy while she performs. Initially annoyed, Kid soon bonds with Darcy over his toy collection. That night, after a larger crowd at her performance, Sonny suggests more shows to Rory. As she leaves, Rory jokingly tells her to stay in the caravan, but she doesn't take him seriously. That night, Sonny shares stories with the tent boxers while Kid listens from his car. The next morning, as the group prepares to leave, Darcy asks to ride with Kid. Sonny leaves it up to him, and he agrees to take the boy. Meanwhile, Ed stops at a car repair shop and talks to the owner. When Darcy asked about Kid's fight, Kid admitted that it's unlikely he will win, but the boy's encouragement impressed him. While Kid works out, Sonny teases him and joins in. They grow closer and tension builds, leading to a kiss. Sonny pulls away, apologizing, and rushes off after her son, who was watching. Kid tries to make amends by giving Darcy a toy, but Darcy rejects it, saying no toy can replace his father. At Sonny's show, Kid watches briefly. Afterward, she asks about it, and he admits he doesn't like seeing other men look at her. Sonny playfully grabs his wallet and shares that she once went to jail for stabbing a man who got too close. She warns him to be careful with Darcy before leaving. The next day, Kid wins his qualification fight with Rory and his friends, securing the rematch with Hammer. However, Ed and Frank aren't impressed. Ed suggests Kid throw the fight with Hammer and bet on the round when he goes down. Rory overhears and confronts Ed, who explains that Tony North took a dive for Kid. Ed reveals their father paid off Tony using money from Kid's planned loss, and Tony opened a car repair shop with it. Devastated, Kid walks away. Ed tells Rory that Tony thought Kid had more talent. Furious, Rory punches Ed. The drive back is tense, with Kid drinking. When they reach camp, the brothers sit quietly in the car. Rory, long in the game, admits he doesn't think he can win, but urges Kid to take a chance. Frustrated, Kid vents about giving up his career for Rory's benefit. Rory reminds him of all the times he protected him, urging him to focus on the future and not let Sonny distract him. Kid jokes about Rory being jealous of Sonny's attention, which leads Rory to angrily tell Sonny she can do one more show, then must leave to avoid ruining Kid's comeback. At Hammer's gym, Ed works on his article while Hammer notices a bruise, guessing the brothers caused it. He warns Ed not to make Kid the hero. Before Sonny leaves, Lizard urges her to check on Kid, who's been drinking. She finds him slumped and asks why, given his victory. Kid admits he knew the qualification fight was rigged for the rematch with Hammer. After comforting him, Sonny tells him Rory fired her, and Kid agrees, urging her to find better opportunities. Frustrated, Sonny snaps, saying if Kid doesn't understand what's worth fighting for, he might as well not fight Hammer. She goes to Rory for her payment, but he gives her less and taunts her with cash, trying to take advantage of her. Darcy rushes in to defend his mother but is knocked down. Lovely steps in, allowing Sonny and Darcy to escape. In the car, Darcy asks if Sonny was paid. When she says no, he runs off but returns quickly, urging her to drive away. By morning, Darcy reveals he has Kid's money box. He defends his actions by saying they're owed, leaving Sunny disappointed. After a pause, she continues driving. Kid notices his money box is missing from under his car seat and suspects Darcy. He heads out to find him and Sunny. Sunny and Darcy hide in a diner's back room, unaware that Betty, Sunny's stepmother, is watching. Worried about Kid, Rory and the tent boxers discuss his disappearance. Later, Ed arrives and asks Rory where Kid is, pulling out a knife for protection. Rory says Kid left, and Ed tells him to pass along his message. The next morning, Betty confronts Sunny but agrees to let them stay for a few days. Darcy, grateful, talks to Betty, amusing her with stories. Later, Kid finds Darcy by the shore and reassures him he means no harm. Noticing a bruise on Darcy, Kid asks what happened. Darcy says Rory caused it while trying to stop him from attacking Sunny. Sunny arrives, calls for Darcy, and talks to Kid. Kid accuses her of stealing his money, which surprises her, and she tells him that she thought the money belonged to Rory. Darcy then returns the money box, admitting he took it, and that his mother had no idea it was Kid's. At another tent boxing event, Danny and his gang look for a rematch with Kid, but Rory directs them to his other boxers since Kid is missing. At Sunny's place, she admits she once hoped Kid came for her, but now sees it was about the money. After she leaves, Kid reflects on her words, follows her, and quietly gives her a hug, leading to a tender moment between them. Inside the tent, Danny beats Billy and brags. Furious, Lovely intervenes, taking down Danny, causing chaos in the venue. By morning, Kid leaves before Darcy wakes up. He meets Slim, then drives through the night, arriving the next day. Lovely, Lizard, and Armless welcome him back. Noticing Billy's absence, Kid rushes to the caravan and finds Billy hurt. He orders the others to take Billy to the hospital and storms into the tent to confront Rory for hurting Sunny and Darcy and making Billy fight Danny. Despite his anger, Kid stops himself from hurting Rory and leaves with the tent boxers. After relocating, he resumes training for his fight with Hammer. The next day, Rory arrives with Billy, who he brought back from the hospital. At Hammer's gym, the champion tells Ed that Kid mocked him for thinking he won their first fight fairly, fueling his desire for a rematch. As the fight approaches, Rory gives Kid new gear as a peace offering. On April 8, 1971, Kid's rematch with Hammer begins. In the locker room, Rory admits he placed a big bet on Kid lasting at least 3 rounds. At home, Sunny and Darcy anxiously watch, and Betty joins them at Darcy's request. Hammer aggressively tries to knock Kid out, but Kid survives both the first and second rounds, despite hitting the canvas. Rory reminds Kid to survive one more round, but Kid is knocked down again in the third. Sunny turns off the TV, unable to watch, but Darcy turns it back on. Against all odds, Kid makes it to the end of the round, bringing Rory relief and joy. Rory tells Kid to stay down next time he's knocked out, reminding him they've secured the money. But in the 4th round, Kid surprises everyone by knocking Hammer down, making the fight much closer. Rory encourages him to go for the win, but before the 5th round, Kid throws in the towel, ending the fight. He had secretly bet on himself lasting 4 rounds with Slim's help. Afterward, Kid collects his winnings and he bids an emotional goodbye to his team, sharing some of his money with them. Rory ensures Kid doesn't leave without saying goodbye, and they share a heartfelt hug. The next morning, Kid goes for a swim at a beach near Sunnyside. Later, Kid watches Sunny at her stepmother's diner. She notices him, walks over, and touches his face, asking if his injuries still hurt. Kid smiles, happy to be with her again.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and stay connected with us.